Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. The previous video posted basically changed my day, and as a consequence of my day change, this place is not suitable for human habitation at the moment, which is why I'm filming from here with the door shut. If you watched the previous video, you'll know why. But I did quite a lot of clips before I actually got on with that work, and I thought some of them might be useful, so I'm just sticking a little introduction on so that I can post those other clips as well. But they are related, the two videos really go together in that order. Otherwise this one's going to seem a little odd. Okay, let's get going. It's just a matter of putting the clips together. I don't need to go out there, so we'll see how we go. While I'm on the topic of bugs, I want to add something on. Mealybugs, aphids, not a problem. In the big scheme of things, easily dealt with. Scale is another thing altogether. Margaret East, I've just sat down with a coffee watching a few more videos, and I've watched Margaret East with her bleach bath and trying to eradicate scale from some of her plants. And I just want to back something up that she's covered in her video, that's not a problem, but I'll back it up with practical examples. I don't know whether they're still there, but scale live in different stages. When you see those limpet-like things on your leaves or on your pseudobulbs, the damage is already done at that stage, yeah? That's an adult scale with a protective shell over it, and I am now relatively confident that hydrogen peroxide will not kill them. They flipping get away with it, especially if they don't get one hell of a soaking. And the problem with hydrogen peroxide is it activates at the point of contact and it deactivates almost immediately. At 3%, its effectiveness dies so quick. And that's why I think some of these scale are getting away with it, the adults I'm on about, because they've got that hard waxy shell, and you know, the exposure to the light and contact with stuff deactivates H2O2 at 3% quite quickly. So although the softies, you know, the mealybugs and the aphids and stuff like that, they just go down, you know, they're incinerated effectively with the oxidization process. But those hard shells on those scales seem to be able to survive it. That may also be true of using rubbing alcohol. Because it's a waxy coating, again, rubbing alcohol works in a totally different way. It effectively evaporates incredibly quick, and when you get it on softy bugs, yeah, it takes them with it, so they effectively totally dehydrate as the rubbing alcohol evaporates. So again, dead. But those waxy coated shells on the scale, they can survive quite a lot. And that's my idea with the systemic pesticide. I get at them from the inside out. I don't need to worry about their protective shell, because underneath there are things nibbling my plants. And the idea of getting at them from the inside is a systemic pesticide. But I don't know whether this is still going to be true, but I'll try and show you. I spotted some scale on this one yesterday. I'm going to have trouble. All the bark's going to fall out because this basket is not suitable for bark. But if you look at the very base, see if I can get some light round here somewhere, you've got the white root coming out of the side, and it's pointing effectively at the root below it. You see all those white dots? That's the crawler stage of scale. And look where they are. They're down in the media, on the bark, on the base of the plant in this case. We may well be looking at dead ones, by the way, not necessarily live ones. But the crawler stage will get down in your media, they will attach to the bark and attach to the roots. At that stage, they can't do a huge amount of damage to your roots, but they, in the not too distant future, will become the adults. and to become adults they will find their way up onto the plants and find some green stuff, you know, on your pseudobulbs, on your leaves, and then they get that hard waxy shell that's quite difficult to deal with, and underneath there they are laying loads of eggs to generate lots of new ones, and so it perpetuates. There is a saying, if you've got scale, you've got scale. It doesn't matter what you do, the buggers will come back. And I have seen a few recently, so I can become concerned enough, you know, to think, right, I need to deal with this now. Because if you let them get out of hand, the more you've got, the more difficult you will get, you know, in trying to eradicate them. If you've only got 2 and you miss one, that's 50%. You know, if you've got 2,000 and you miss half of them, what's left? Far too many. So, yeah, scale are a nuisance. They will get down in your media, yeah, and they will get on your roots. I mean, I had some on a Vanda once that were actually on the roots. Didn't see any on the plant, but they'd have got up to the plant eventually, and they leave damage that's permanent. Scale got at that leaf when it was brand new and took little nibbles, and so as it grew, the little nibbles stay as pale patches. I can't see any more immediately to hand, but some of the worst affected plants in my environment are the cattleyas, and they get on the base of the plant. Let's see if I can find some, because I did spot a few yesterday. Just my luck to pick up one with none on. Anyway, they get down there at the base of the plant where it's almost impossible to get all the sheaths off. And they will hide in the smallest of places. And those places are so small that you often can't get a liquid to get down in there of any sort. Yeah? Which is why I believe that a way of eradicating them is to get at them from the inside of the plant out. So I use a systemic. And then the whole plant effectively becomes poisonous to anything that wants to take a chunk out of it. That is small enough. Yeah, I emphasise on small enough. This stuff is not that strong, but it's plenty strong enough to deal with the sort of bugs you get on your plants. You know, I don't know whether it would kill a cricket or a grasshopper. I doubt it. I doubt if it's strong enough to take out something that large. But it will certainly get at the bugs I get, you know, which are mealy bugs, yeah, little bit. The odd little outbreak of aphids, they usually just get in and breed on a flower spike, and they're sort of self-contained at that point, so they're very easy to deal with and they die easy. But scale is a whole different ball game, a whole different thing altogether. You need to take charge of that fast. So have a look at Margaret East and her bleach bath and the effort that she's putting into on just a couple of plants because she's got scale. And quite honestly, one treatment might not even do it. I watched somebody in the States have a go at the bleach bath, which they hadn't heard of before, and they had to do it a second time. These little blighters hang in there. You only got to miss one and they're up and running again. And they do permanent damage. I mean, I've lost half a dozen of my Tolumnias as a direct result of letting scale get out of hand and not using a treatment that worked. Because I wanted to stay organic. I didn't want the strong chemicals in here. I mean, at the time I had the chair out here, and me and my cat used to live out here quite a lot. You know, fall asleep in the chair. Yes, both of us. But I let them get out of hand, and the treatments were not effective. And I kept repeating them, and they weren't effective. And literally, the first time I got the systemic spray on those Tolumnias, the scale stopped. Yeah? Now, okay, the little crawler stages can come back again. You know, just because they're on one plant, they're not confined to that plant. They will move around in that tiny little stage, little tiny white dots. And when they hatch out, they're like a little cluster. It almost looks like a furry bit. But they're tiny, they're small, they're white, and at first they cluster together in a tight little mass. So they look like a little furry mass on your root or on your media or on the base of your plant. And they stay like that for a while. And while they're like that, they're quite easy to get at. But then they move, and they can move quite quickly, and they will spread to other plants. And as I said, at the point they start moving around like that, they are ready to transform into the adults and get their nice hard waxy protective, coating, which then makes them difficult to get at. So anyway, if you've ever had scale, you know what I mean. They're a tyke to get rid of, and a protective element on the inside of the plant is one way of dealing with them. I mean, if I had scale on quite a large number of plants in here, I'd have no guarantee that they weren't on the plant next door as well, even if I couldn't see them. Can you imagine trying to do bleach baths with this lot? Bearing in mind the only way to do it properly is to totally unpot, get all the old media off and dunk the whole flipping plant and then repot it with everything clean. New media, scrub the pot or use a new one. Can you imagine the workload? So I can't let them get out of hand. I've got to get at it. Well, stop talking about it, boy, and get on with it then. I just thought I'd add that on because there's bugs, which I class mealybugs and aphids, and then to me what I call superbugs, and that's the scale. They are superbugs. They are a hell of a job to get rid of if you let them get out of hand. So if you do ever see them, or you're even thinking you might have them, don't think you might have them. Deal with it as though you have. Take the precautions before it gets out of hand. As I said, last year, with my soapy little washes and my little organic treatments, they just got worse and worse and worse. I don't even think it slowed them down. I think they just thought of, oh, that was a nice bath, I enjoyed that. Right, now let's get on with breeding. And they did. And they got out of hand, they did damage, I lost plants. Yeah. Okay, lecture over. See you next time. One other thing I forgot to say. How do you get scale? Well, in a place like this, they come in on plants from outside. Simple as that. They're not flyers as such, they're crawlers in their early life cycle, and then they become static at the point that they form that hard shell. So it's literally coming in on plants that have already got either some eggs or some crawlers or one adult. That's all it can take. So they come in on plants. Yeah, not like aphids that that they have a flying stage. So do mealybugs, and with my fans on, I'm sucking in air from outside. So they can come in from outside. They have the means, same as slugs and snails. They can come in from outside on their own steam, basically. But scale are fundamentally brought in on plants, and due to lack of quarantine, you can call it what you like. But most of the time, you don't know they're there until they get going. So that's how they get in. In the main, they come in on a plant that's already got some, either in the media, at the base of the plant, or just one adult lurking under a leaf. That's all it can take. And then they're up and running. And you need to get on top of them. So that's what I'm up to today. I hate it, but I haven't found another way of dealing with this number of plants and things getting out of hand, which they did last year. So it's the only solution I've found that I can do quickly, minimal workload, yeah, and minimal damage to my plants. Because this stuff's okay for orchids. And I'll just quickly video, because I know somebody's going to say, what do you use? So I'll go and get the stuff. Okay, that's the stuff I use. Because in the UK there's very little else I can use. There is another ready-made spray I can use, which is called Rose Clear or something like that, that will deal with scale. But it's also got a contact killer and a bit of fungicide in with it, and it absolutely stinks, and I can't stand the smell of the flipping stuff. So that's for just one spot treatment, something like that, because I just can't stand the smell of the stuff. This stuff has not a pleasant smell, but the smell is gone quickly. Yeah, it's absorbed into the plants and that's it. Whereas this other stuff, the smell hangs around for days. I hate it. So that's what I use. And in the UK, I've got very little choice. And this stuff is a cheap way of getting it. It comes as a ready-made spray. And that sort of works, but it don't last long. Yeah. Whereas this stuff you mix up yourself. And don't go thinking, oh, I'll use it a lot stronger than it says, because you're wasting your time and your money. Use it at recommended doses. Don't play with, chemicals. Use as advised. Somebody's done a lot of work to tell you how to use it, and it does pay to stick to it. I doubt if I can... You're not going to be able to see that because I won't be able to focus, but that's the low level stuff that's inside it. Yeah, so that's the lower level chemicals that are going on in here. I can't even pronounce half of that. But anyway, that's what's going on, and as I said, there's very little I can use. But this stuff specifically says, with a pretty picture, that it works for scale. And a lot of systemic insecticides will not work for scale. And I'll tell you something else as well. This stuff does not work on spider mites. True spider mites. It will work on false spider mites because they're an insect. However, the red spider mites are an arachnid. And this stuff don't work. But they do make one that does work for spider mites, the red spider mites, if you've got them. I just don't have a problem with spider mites, and I think it's just they don't like the high humidity. They like it warm and dry. Well, that's the last thing I want in here, is warm and dry. Warm and ever so moist, cooler and not so moist. And once the temperatures drop down, spider mites just are not happy. They just don't breed. Yeah, so they don't like low temperatures. So I'd never get a problem in the winter with those. I've only ever had one little outbreak of spider mites. It was sat on as fast as I saw it, and it was one plant. And I bet you anything you like, I bought that in on another plant and just didn't spot it at the time. Anyway, that's what I use. It's a multi-purpose. It's got a systemic action and a contact action. So anything that this gets on is dead, and then it gets into the plant, and anything that takes a bite out of the plant is dead. That's how it works. It does the job. And as I said, with the very limited access to chemicals left in the UK that we're allowed to use, because we're not responsible adults, we're not allowed to have such things anymore. But that's what I use anyway.